The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Clark, Director of the Center for Educational Media and Professional Development at MTSU's College of Education. Welcome to the first annual School Counselors Collaborative Summer Academy at MTSU. For those joining us for the first time today, the School Counselors Collaborative offers professional development for school counselors and their colleagues, including K-12 teachers and administrators from school districts across Tennessee. The School Counselors Collaborative offers collaborative professional development with school counselors serving as presenters to share ideas for strategies, materials, programs, technology that have been successful for them in Tennessee schools. It's participant-driven, with school counselors identifying the topics of sessions based on their needs. It's especially beneficial for districts with fewer resources and smaller staffs of school counselors. The collaborative supports new counselors in their first year as school counselors, and it develops professional support networks across Tennessee and individual contacts statewide. We offer multiple sessions during the school year to address topics and apply professional development immediately in the school settings, and it's all available at no charge to the participants. And we partner with the Tennessee Department of Education and Asca, the statewide professional organization for school counselors, in order to keep everyone informed of statewide initiatives and opportunities. The School Counselors Collaborative is part of a broader initiative here at MTSU, the PK-12 Collaborative. It originates here in the Center for Educational Media, and we currently offer two programs, the ELL Collaborative and the School Counselors Collaborative. A third program, the SPED Collaborative, is scheduled to begin in the coming school year. For more information about the PK-12 Collaborative, please go to our website, mtsu.edu/CEM. And now I want to welcome Dr. Tiffany Wilson to join us on screen. Good morning, Dr. Wilson.
Good morning.
Dr. Wilson is Associate Professor in the Professional Counseling Program and Coordinator of the School Counseling Program at MTSU. And she serves as our faculty expert in the School Counselors Collaborative. And she will co-moderate the conference today. Dr. Wilson, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started today?
Sure. Thank you so much, Laura. Dr. Clark, first, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to host this wonderful event. And we also want to thank the College of Education and also all the staff at LRC for putting on this wonderful event. As the program, we are very excited to be a part of this. We have a lot of wonderful things going on in our school counseling program. This fall coming up, we actually have 8 students who are employed as full-time school counselors, and I think that is a huge testament to the work that our faculty pours into all of our students. We have grown exponentially over the past 3 months and actually doubled in size. We have currently over 50 school counseling students in our program, which is absolutely amazing, especially with the need of school counselors across the state of Tennessee right now. So our continued goal as our program continues to grow is just to continue to develop trauma-informed school counselors who have a strong sense of multicultural competency and who just really have a heart to help students out there be the best they can be. So we're really excited to be here and just excited for all the things we're going to hear today.
Thanks, Dr. Wilson. We're so glad you're with us. So today we're offering 3 sessions in the Summer Academy. First, we will hear this morning about advocacy and professionalism for school counselors. In our second session, we will hear updates from the Tennessee Department of Education. And in the final session, we will welcome a panel of 3 school counselors representing elementary, middle school, and high school, and they will discuss strategies for working with children who have experienced trauma. As you watch this today and participate with us, if you have any questions for presenters, please post your questions in the live stream chat. Dr. Wilson will share your questions with presenters at the end of their presentation. So now I'd like to invite our first presenter, Amy Baltimore, to join us on screen. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Amy Baltimore is a school counselor, Salem Elementary School in Murfreesboro City Schools. The topic of her presentation today, the title of it is Expanding Your Focus, School Counseling in the School, District, State, and Beyond. Amy, thank you for joining us today and sharing your ideas.
Good morning, and I just want to say again, thank you for joining us today. I know what it is to give up time in the summer, so I truly appreciate it. Let's get rolling though with a couple of funny things that we can just laugh about, get it on the table, and then move on from. These are 5 ways that you know you're a school counselor when. Number 1, you know you're a school counselor when someone mentions their lunchtime and you say, "What's that?" Number 2, you know you're a school counselor when you get 10,000 steps a day just inside the school building. Number 3, you know you're a school counselor when you can literally do 12 things at once and do them all extremely well. Number 4, you know you're a school counselor when you are super excited about the breaks, but you spend them worried about your students. And number 5, you know you're a school counselor when your to-do list is rarely completed due to unexpected circumstances. If you can relate to any of those, you know you're a school counselor. So today I just want to talk about being a school counselor and what that looks like as far as addressing our professionalism and advocating for school counseling in our schools and in our districts, in the state, and beyond. Some of the subtopics is we really want to look at a perspective of what school counseling was, what it is now, and where it's going. We really want to look at practical ways to increase professionalism for school counseling and to advocate for our programs at every level. And we really want to take into consideration the diversity of our own colleagues of school counseling and our school populations, and really look at what it means to serve them and serve each other at those levels. So moving on, I do love collaboration. That is probably one of my favorite things about being a school counselor. And one of the things I do is I follow a lot of different counselors on Instagram. I look at a lot of different websites and I go to a lot of different blogs. So what I wanted to do was just bring to you some of the things that other school counselors are saying about professionalism and advocacy. So this first one is Carol Miller, and she says, there's a difference between education and advocating. Once your stakeholders are aware, meaning you've educated them, then you need to advocate for time, space, and responsibilities you should be doing based on what you told them you are supposed to do. Another quote that I have is from Stephanie at the Bilingual Learner. Most administrators and educators have no idea what our school counseling job roles or duties are, according to Asca, the American School Counseling Association. Therefore, we must tell them professionally, politely, and in increments. Give yourself 3 to 5 years to work with your admin. That's from Stephanie. This one is from Lori Mendoza. When it comes to advocating for my program, data is my best friend. We'll talk about that some. This one is from Kate from Educate and Inspire. Documentation and data are two essential components of school counselor advocacy. By taking the time to stay organized and track important data, we can help to illustrate the value of our profession to stakeholders. And the last one is from the DIY counselor. I hope that you follow the DIY counselor. That's a fun one. Developing a positive relationship with admin is vital in advocating for the role of school counseling. So you have heard me say school counseling over and over and over again. So which is it? Is it guidance counselor? Is it school counselor? Well, a lot of my information comes from an article called Remembering the Past, Shaping the Future. This article came out in 2010, but I'm also looking at the American School Counseling position statements and the Asca framework when I bring this information to the screen. What is it? Guidance counselor, school counselor? A guidance counselor, that was a term that came out in the 1930s, and it responded more to the need for career guidance. So it was reactive. It really was one of those things where, there was a need and we jumped in to fill that need. Services to some. The impact was measured based on feelings that feel like it's going well, or perceptions. Oh yes, that school counselor is doing a great job. Guidance counselor is doing a great job. It was an ancillary role to the school improvement process. So, and last thing, working in isolation. So back in the 1930s, when all of this was kind of coming to be part of the normal public education system, school counseling really was more of a guidance-related type of a position. So then the American School Counseling Association in the 1950s stepped up and really advocated for the whole idea of a school counselor. During the 1950s, they started developing this idea, school counselor. We'll get more into it, but it became something that was much more proactive and data-driven. Services for all. So we hear all the time about the multi-tiered systems of support. That's a big thing in school counseling. Services for all. Impact, being measured by achievement, attendance, behavioral data, all these different pieces, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's essential to the school improvement process. At this point, what would we do without our school counselors, right? They are an essential part of the school improvement plan, which is another thing we'll talk about. School counselors are school leaders. If that's one thing that I've learned in my 12 years in school counseling, even though I might be licensed as a teacher or my pay scale is as a teacher, school counselors do take a leadership role in the school. It's inevitable, and it's something that we can embrace with all of the advocacy and professionalism that we can muster. School counselors develop, manage, and evaluate a comprehensive school counseling program. Those of you who did the Google survey that was sent out, I really appreciate it. We're going to look at that data in a minute, but that piece right there is a big one. I have a quote from Mindy Willard. She was the Asca School Counselor of the Year for 2013. I really like what she said. We are no longer guidance counselors only focused on graduation and course selection for students. We are professional school counselors who focus on the academic success, college and career readiness, and social emotional development of all students. That quote right there really sums it up. So moving on to school counselor professionalism, there is something to be said about having resources. And the American School Counseling Association has a set of professional standards and competencies that we can look at to really guide what our mindsets and our behaviors are as school counselor professionals. If you've never looked at this, I highly encourage you to go to the school counseling website, American School Counseling Association. It's all there. Lots and lots of tabs though. So what I'll do is all the things I talk about, I'll put them in the Discord. So after the conference, you can access those easily and you don't have to go hunting around. But the professional standards and competencies really break it down for us. They give us the mindsets, which are a set of beliefs about student achievement and success. And they give us behaviors. So I want to look at the standards and competencies real quick and just say, American School Counseling Association, or from now on, I'll just say Asca. Asca says, these standards and competencies help ensure new and experienced school counselors are equipped to establish, maintain, and enhance a school counseling program addressing academic achievement, career planning, and social emotional development. I like that statement because it says it helps ensure new and experienced school counselors. So I trained in Florida, but obviously I'm working in Tennessee. There's a big discrepancy between what school counseling is in Florida compared to what it is in Tennessee. But then I came to Tennessee and I realized there's also a discrepancy within the professionals in Tennessee of what school counseling is and the different roles and responsibilities. So even though I've been in school counseling for the last 12 years, it really was a relearning process to come to Tennessee and visit the different districts and decide, okay, where do I fit in and what exactly can I or should I be doing as a school counselor? The Asca professional standards and competencies were that guide for me. Thankfully, I have landed in a district that I love, and it is a district that definitely supports me in my professionalism and advocacy. So I'm thankful for that, and I hope that you are able to find that as well. So as a new school counselor, this provided a framework, and as an experienced school counselor, this provided a framework, which I really love. So we talked about the mindsets and how those are our kind of beliefs about student achievement and student success. But the behaviors, that's the part that trips up a lot of people because it's massive. It is a huge group of professional foundation standards, direct and indirect services standards, and then planning and assessment standards. It's big. Each behavior standard has specific competencies and measurable indicators of the broader standard. So these competencies can be used to further define the behavior necessary for me as a school counselor to implement my school counseling program. If we could go to the next slide of the Google survey results, I just want to share with you what the survey indicated, which is what you said about these different behaviors. So under professional foundation, by far, what you said was that you would really like more understanding and more support on creating systemic change through your program. This is huge, and I 100% agree with you. This is a big one. It's what we want to do, right? That's why we go into school counseling, to affect change and to be a help and to be a support. So understanding how to do that as a school counselor and how to actually take the data we have available and prove that we're doing it, that's huge. So the Asca model assists us in this in multiple ways. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Under direct and indirect services, if you've ever done the use of time assessment, which I know if you've gone through a school counseling program at MTSU, you are definitely doing the use of time assessment, that is unnecessary evil, okay? I know it's not fun, but it is one of those pieces of data that will give you the information you need to show you where the gaps are in your program and to show you where you're really doing well. It's one of those tools that you can use to define what needs to happen next. So that whole idea of creating systemic change through your program as a professional foundation, it's a wonderful thing, and the Asca model has answers for you. The next one, direct and indirect services. By far, most of you reported, it was 58%, by the way, those of you who like the numbers, said that designing and implementing instruction aligned to the Asca mindsets and behaviors was something that you would like to do better in. That's something you'd like more information in. Designing and implementing instruction aligned to the Asca model of the behaviors and mindsets. I'll talk to that or speak to that just a second here. I have this document as part of the professional standards and competencies. It is, let's see, pages 2 through 7. So it's 5 pages of all of the behaviors broken down into different standards under professional foundation, direct and indirect services, planning and assessment. So when I first looked at this, I kind of had a panic attack because it looks like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to fit these all in to my school counseling program? The nice thing about this is that there is a mindset and behaviors action plan document that goes along with it. So if you're doing that use of time assessment and you're using the annual agreement, you can go back to those data pieces and fill in the gaps that you found with this. It's not about do all of these every year. It's not about that. This is about in developing and increasing your professionalism and being able to advocate for your program by using measurable pieces of data. So I really like this document. It breaks it down, tells you exactly what you can be doing to fulfill the standard. And I will load this up to the Discord so that you can access it pretty quickly if you haven't already. The last thing in the survey was about planning and assessment. And so, in speaking to what we've already said, most of you, the majority of you said that you wanted more support and understanding in identifying gaps in achievement, attendance, discipline data, opportunities, and resources. So that's what this is all about, right? Using the data to prove that what we're doing is effective, using the data to know that when we choose our mindsets and behaviors, our standards for the next year, that we're doing it in a way that is data-driven, we're going to do it with fidelity, and we're really going to work at impacting our school and our district in the areas that we find have the most need. So in doing that, you have to advocate for your program and talk to your administration about, hey, I need to take a look at that state survey that we sent out. I need to know what our stakeholders are saying about, the needs in our school. Or, hey, would you mind if I took the opportunity to send out a needs assessment to our staff and really kind of dig in with them and see what they think students need? Or let me look at the discipline data. Let me see how many discipline referrals we've had this year and really break it down by ethnicity, by socioeconomic status, grade level. I mean, all the different ways that you can break down that data to take a look and see, where do we have some discrepancies? Whew, we could spend all day talking about that. There are so many things you can find in and among the data on just those two pieces. That's not even talking about attendance data, or if you use a multi-tiered system of support, all the data that you can pull from that. From your special ed group, from your school psychologist, if you have one of those in your district or in your school, so many places. But you know what that takes? Advocating. You have to step up a little bit assertively and say, I need these pieces of data. And I'm going to talk to you in a minute about a guiding piece, a guiding document, so that you don't have to go scrambling around looking for this stuff. Guess what? Asca has it for you, which is really nice. All right, speaking of, I want to go to the next slide and just talk really quickly about advocating for your profession. All right, so you should see on there 3 different things. You should see a slide that says advocating for your professionalism. The first one that I want to talk about, and this is just really quickly, this is just something for you to think about as you move through your professional development as a school counselor. Have you looked into National Certified School Counselor? Have you looked into that? It is a board certification that allows you as a professional to say that I am serious about being a professional school counselor. I am board certified. It lends you credibility. It gives you an opportunity to pull together all of your professional licensures and certifications and put them in one place and say, this is who I am as a professional. It gives you guidance in moving forward in your school counseling profession. What opportunities are there for you? So that's something to look into. There are quite a few requirements and prerequisites, but just the fact that you are a school counselor gives you most of those prerequisites right away, because your licensure, your certification, your diploma, all of that kind of fit into all of the requirements there. The website for that is nbcc.org. nbcc.org. National Certified School Counselor, nbcc.org. The second one is the Asca Certified School Counselor. This is another proof of commitment. I'm not saying go and do all of these. I'm just saying these are things to look at. If you're wondering, or if you're new to school counseling and you're wondering, okay, so what exactly can I do as a school counselor? Where can I go with it? What opportunities are out there? What steps should I take to increase in my professionalism? This is a good one for that. They advocate for professional excellence and credibility. There is an application. It does cost money, but this is one of those that as a school counselor is something you can be working toward. What I like about it is when you pull up the application, you can kind of say, oh, all right, so I may not have all these pieces right now, but I know what to work toward. So I'm moving in that direction, okay? So the Asca Certified School Counselor, that one is found at schoolcounselor.org, schoolcounselor.org. Okay, so you have your professionalism kind of in place. You know what things you want to work on. You know a direction you want to go as far as you want to be a professional. You want to be recognized as a professional. You've looked up the requirements for board certification. You've looked up the application for the Asca School Counselor, Certified School Counselor, and you've got a list of things that you want to work on. So the next thing to look at is advocating for your program, which I put RAMP certification on the slide that says advocating for your professionalism, because RAMP certification is recognized Asca model program. It's something that as a school counselor, you can work toward, right? It's a goal. It's like, some people, they want to be school counselor of the year. They work for that, which is great. There are lots of requirements for that. And it is a lofty goal, and I applaud anyone that is heading in that direction. It's a wonderful thing. RAMP certification can help you get there. RAMP certification allows you to take a look at, what is my program doing? Am I anywhere close to being in line with the Asca standards? What could I do differently? Or it might be one of those things where you look at it and go, oh, yeah, I am doing that, which is great. Your instincts are spot on, which is why you're a school counselor. And so let's move to the next slide. I know you guys are familiar with this logo, school counselors, building better humans. So how do we do that? We advocate for our programs. And that Asca model gives us a framework for a program, okay? So as we think about building better humans, we have to kind of think about where this all started and where this came from. So bear with me. We're going to have a little history lesson here, okay? And it all starts back in the 1990s, okay? And this is coming from the School Counselor Association Journals, Volume 13. And it's from 2006, but there's a lot of good information here. So I'm going to go through a little bit of it. This is about advocacy and the professional school counselor, and especially in regards to your program. In the 1990s, anybody remember that? 1990s, School counselors were seen solely as service providers who stood on the edge of possible extinction as the new millennium approached and demanded professional reform. Well, full disclosure, in the 1990s, I was living overseas and I was homeschooling. So school counseling was not on my radar at all. But I do remember a big shift in education. I know there were a lot of discussions in my household about the kids in my family. There are 7 of us. I come from a family of 7 and I'm the oldest. So there was a lot of discussion about who was going to go where for school. Some of us went to public school, some went to private school, some of us homeschooled, and it was all just because of the different activities we were involved in, the different things we were doing. And I do remember this being a discussion as far as education changing as the new millennium approached. My dad was a principal for a period of time, so we always talked about education in our school, in our families. So then along comes the 2000s, okay? So there was a discussion of the need for school counselors to be accountable for outcomes through the use of data, data-driven programs, which aided in the development of curricular goals and programs. So in an effort to clarify those evolving transformations and redefine professional school counseling, Asca and the ACA developed the framework, okay? The framework for school counseling programs in 2003. So along with that, the 4 themes were advocacy, leadership, collaboration, and systemic change. These all sound like amazing things that we all want as school counselors. Well, maybe we don't all want leadership. I know a lot of us like to do what we do and kind of slide under the radar, but really, truly, if we are going to advocate for systemic change, if that's what we want, which according to the survey, that's what we're saying we want, we have to step out of that comfort zone a little bit, be assertive, use our data as our foundation, and step forward to present in a leadership role what it is school counselors do and how we can impact our communities. The Education Trust for Transforming School Counseling Initiative is what came out of this in 2003. Education Trust, you can go and Google it if you want, or I will upload this document to the Discord so you can take a look at it. Don't have to go looking for it. But this was a landmark for school counseling. This changed things, okay? So then the advocacy competencies kind of came into play. There were 3 areas of advocacy that were essential to professional school counselors. It included dispositions, knowledge, and skills for designing successful school counseling programs. So this is answering, again, what you guys said that you really would like to know more about based on that survey of the mindsets and behaviors. So this is really interesting because all these gaps are getting filled in here through the ACA and through Asca. This is great. So the ACA took on a task force on those advocacy competencies in 2005. And those emergency advocacy and leadership roles for school counseling became critical. Now, here's the big question. That was 2005. We've come a long way from there, and Asca has continued to work on this through the task force and through ACA and through all of these different government and federal entities. So the question is, do school counselors truly have an obligation to serve as advocates? Do we? According to Asca's ethical standards for school counseling, and again, in the survey, that was like number 2 on one of our sections about the ethics of school counseling and making sure we follow the legal and ethical standards. Well, according to Asca's ethical standards for school counselors, a school counselor's primary obligation is to the student and is concerned with the educational, academic, career, personal, and social needs and encourages the maximum development of every student. We can't do that without advocating. According to the ACA, the Code of Ethics states, when appropriate, counselors advocate at individual, group, institutional, and societal levels to examine potential barriers and obstacles that inhibit access and/or the growth and development of clients. I don't know about you guys, but the mantle falls heavy on me when I read that. That is one of those things that hits me to the core. Advocacy is a vital role in school counseling, and advocating for our programs has to include the use of data. It has to include identifying the gaps and stepping into those gaps to meet the needs of our communities. So several authors, and I can list them all, or you can look at the article when I post it later. They say that school counselors are best positioned to assess and promote academic success for all students. I hope that's true in your school. I hope that's true. I hope that you are best positioned to assess and promote academic success. I know that some school counselors are not. I know that in some schools, you feel that your hands are tied in a lot of ways. So I hope that at the end of this session, you are able to see that using the Asca model and joining these certification boards and enhancing your professionalism actually allows you to open doors so that you can advocate for the academic success for all students on a much better positional level. So here are some practical suggestions. There are 5 of them. I guess that's my number for today. I gave you 5, you know where you're a school counselor when, and now 5 practical suggestions. So if you want to jot these down, there are 5. These are not on a slide, I'm sorry, but here they are. Number 1, conduct a needs assessment. I know, but this is huge, and it will help you in the long run. It's like one of those things, put the hard work in on the front end, and you will reap the benefits on the back end. Asca's national model incorporates the use of data collection and analysis as part of that management system. So it's all about action research. And again, research, but it's all about action research where you can use a method of inquiry to truly find where should I be working harder, smarter, not harder. Where should I be working smarter, not harder? And that needs assessment is going to help you there. So some of the data pieces you could use for that action research, behavioral observations, the needs assessment, of course, student portfolios, the statewide school survey if your school does that. And if not, maybe that's something you can advocate for. If you use multi-tiered systems of support, there are lots of data pieces there. Simple things like the use of time assessment. I do minute meetings. I do them in the fall and in the spring because that gives me a lot of connectivity data to be able to say, are my students feeling connected to the school? School climate surveys, all of these things. All right, so number 1, conduct a needs assessment. Number 2, develop a plan of action. No sense in doing action research if you're not going to develop a plan of action. So this is a necessary condition for advocacy. Here's the key. This sounds like so much stuff, Amy Baltimore. You are so extra. I don't think I can handle all this. All right. So we start with 2 or 3 areas of improvement that you feel your school counseling program could do to positively impact the outcomes of your student learning, their academic, their personal, social, emotional success. 2 or 3. All right. So when I showed you the wonderful mindsets and behaviors in the 5 pages of 2 or 3. That's where using the data is so powerful. You can align the mindsets and behaviors through Asca. You can align those with your school survey, with your school improvement plan, which you'll have to advocate and say, I need access to that. The priorities that your administrator has for that year. You can take all of that and say, okay, I've got 2 or 3 behaviors here that I'm going to pick that are going to make the biggest impact and support the learning for my school. So number 1, conduct a needs assessment. Number 2, develop a plan of action. Number 3, take assertive action. It's not enough to do the research and make a plan. You have to take assertive action. One of the things I teach a lot, especially I'm in elementary school, sorry, little caveat there. One of the things I teach a lot is how to be assertive. And being assertive is not aggressive. Being assertive is not demanding. Being assertive is really, as a school counselor, having the data that you need to have the confidence to step into the gap and say, I have a solution, and then take assertive action. In taking assertive action, you are resolving concerns. And it's helpful to consider multiple perspectives and attempt to create situations in which all parties can benefit. Of particular importance is to ensure that actions are culturally responsive to diversity within the school setting. So this is a big one, and I'm not here to talk about cultural competency or cultural compassion or social justice or any of those things. We could be here all day talking about that. But making sure that you are aware that the choices you are making that you're hoping will create systemic change are culturally responsive to the diversity that is within your school setting. This is paramount, because we can work through our implicit bias all day long and think we've got the best action plan in the book, but if it's not responsive to the diversity in our school population, it's not going to affect or impact that systemic change that you really want. And that's where using your data really, I'm trying to think of the word, it's escaping me, looking at it in minute detail and digging into the nitty-gritty of it and not shying away from the glaring discrepancies that you see in it, but really stepping in assertively to fill those gaps. That's where you're going to create the systemic change. Remember, just 2 or 3 things, okay? 2 or 3. Don't blow yourself out of the water with all this. All right, so number 1, conduct a needs assessment. Number 2, develop a plan of action. Number 3, take assertive action. All right, number 4, follow up to ensure the changes or the solutions are being implemented. Monitoring is part of the school counseling world. That's what we do constantly. We monitor whether or not our interventions or our program is being implemented effectively, and whether or not we need to make changes because it's not making an impact here. You know, these needs are going unmet there. Monitoring. This is something that my type A, Enneagram 8 little person struggles with. I like to start things, but keeping them going is something that I have to make sure I have a plan for and make sure that I'm doing. So follow up, ensure the changes or the solutions are being implemented. And something that is on my slide that really helps with this is having an advisory board. All right, so I am referring to my slide here under advocating for your program, making sure that you have an advisory board. This is part of the Asca model, and it's one of those things where you can pull in professionals from multiple disciplines. I love having an interdisciplinary collaborative group as an advisory board. That's an amazing thing. So you can pull in somebody from SPED. You can pull in somebody from related arts. You can pull in a K through 2 teacher. You could pull in the middle school counselor at the next level at the school that you feed into. You could pull in a school counselor from another school. You could pull in someone from the district level. An advisory board. They will help you monitor the implementation of your program. They will help give you perspective on what the needs of the greater community are and what the vision of the district is and where the students need to go moving forward in their education, all of that. The advisory board is huge. It's really, really helpful. So when you look at what can I do to advocate for my program, and you look at these 5 steps that I'm giving you, number 4, the monitoring, that's where your advisory board comes into play. They can help provide you with these pieces of data that you need to look at. They can help you stay on track. All right, but again, it's something you have to advocate for. You have to set that up. Say, please, would you be part of my advisory board? And you know what? Be kind of bulldogish about it. Don't let them, don't let them put you off. Say, this is something I really need in order to develop my professionalism. If you're getting a lot of pushback, then find someone else, right? So putting together an advisory board to help you follow up and monitor your program. All right, number 5, last one on this, and then we'll talk about the annual administrative agreement. Okay, so last one on this whole idea of advocating for your program. Personally assess the strengths and weaknesses of your advocacy efforts. Personally assess the strengths and weaknesses of your advocacy efforts. Taking steps to eradicate or improve situations for students and their families, that is never a mistake on the part of a professional school counselor. If you are seeing that, okay, I think let's just say, for example, in my district or in my school community, we need more support for parents to understand things, let's just say bullying prevention, all right? So I'm gonna give a series of parent workshops on bullying prevention. I'm assessing that as a gap. We had a lot of data last year. I'm making this up, by the way. This is just facetious. We had data last year that showed that bullying situations are on the rise, and there are a lot of allegations, but then these allegations are unfounded. They're not really bullying situations. They're just more conflict. So what is going on here? Do we have a lack of understanding? Probably. Let's educate. So, okay, I'm going to have some parent workshops. I'm going to have some professional development. I'm going to have some training sessions with our students. And you set up all these things, you have a plan, you take the steps, you show up for your workshops, and you have 2 parents there. Okay. Well, it's just the first one. So we're going to try it again next quarter. So I'm going to send out the information. Everyone has all the things. Maybe it was the wrong time of day. Yeah, so most of my parents, when I go back and look at my data of my student population, I have lots of working parents. Everyone's working. Moms, dads, grandmas, everybody's working. Okay, so I think I need to have this in the evening because my 3 o'clock PD was not very well attended. All right, okay, so I'm going to have it in the evening. Okay, so your next one is scheduled at 7 o'clock. You're providing light snacks. And guess what? You have 25 parents show up. Oh, so what did I just do there? I personally assessed the strengths and weaknesses of my advocacy efforts, and I took steps to eradicate or improve the situation for my students and families. So the key to this one is to really be able to think critically about what you're doing and hold up a mirror and say, it is okay. It's okay for me to mess up. It's okay for me to have to stop and regroup and redo it. It's okay. As long as I am doing something, it is, according to this author, never a mistake on the part of the professional school counselor. So those are my 5 things that I just wanted to bring up as far as advocating for your program. Conduct a needs assessment, develop a plan of action, take assertive action, follow up on that, using your advisory board to keep you focused, keep you on track, and personally assess the strengths and weaknesses, making changes as needed. So that brings me to the second point on that slide of advocating for your program, the annual administrative agreement. Now, some of you might be familiar with the program management agreement from 2017. That's kind of the one that we've been using last couple of years. Well, then right before COVID, Asca rolled out the 4th edition of the national model. And guys, it's a lot more simple than the 2017 version. It's much easier to use, much easier to use. If you need training on it, the SCALI conference, the School Counselor and Leadership, and Administrative Leadership Institute, it's in the Embassy Suites in Murfreesboro in September, every September. Asca is always there. They're always ready to workshop their model. So that would be a big thing to put on your list of possibilities for the year if you're not already signed up. So it's now called, the Program Management Agreement is now called the Annual Administrative Agreement. And there are so many pieces of supporting documentation and data that you can use for this, but I am going to say, I'm going to advocate that you really focus on 3. Okay, the first one is the annual agreement itself. All right, when you pull that up, it guides you as far as what pieces of data you need and how to plug everything in. Now, if you remember, back at the beginning of my presentation, I kind of highlighted this idea that it takes 3 to 5 years to really build this idea of increasing your professionalism and advocating for your program. That sounds like a long time, but you know it goes like that, okay? But definitely start by pulling out that annual administrative agreement. It's kind of a framework, and it tells you what you need to have to put the pieces together. The second piece of the puzzle that I would use is the Mindsets and Behaviors Action Plan. So this is that one that can be super overwhelming when you first look at it. All these standards, But as you use the annual agreement, you're identifying your gaps. You're looking at the school improvement plan that you've asked for through your advisory board, your administrator. You are looking at the discipline data. You are looking at attendance data, any of the multi-tiered systems of support pieces of data that you might have. You're looking at all of those different pieces, and you're identifying 2 or 3 of these behaviors, 2 or 3 of these professional standards that you could implement for the next year to fill the gaps and promote student success. Okay, so that Mindsets and Behaviors Action Plan, that's your ticket right there. So hearkening back to the survey that you guys took, the majority of you said that you wanted a little bit more guidance in how to adhere to the standards. Well, that's how to do it. That action plan, that Mindsets and Behaviors Action Plan, that's the thing that will help you. So again, I'm going to upload all of these pieces to the Discord. So when you go after this conference and you want to go looking for this stuff, it'll all be there, so you don't have to go hunting it down. I don't even mind if you email me. I don't mind sending you mine, the one that I've completed for this year. And you should know, this is my 3rd year putting those pieces of data in place, right? With this 4th edition. Right? So it takes time. It takes that 3 to 5 years. It takes that one step at a time, moving through the pieces, collecting the data, advocating for what you need, and that is okay. All right, so the 3rd piece that I think is really important when you're looking at the Asca model, the first one was the annual administrative agreement, the second one being that action plan. The 3rd piece is the annual calendar. Again, that can be so daunting, but it's so rewarding too. I love this. I mean, again, Amy Baltimore, you're a little extra. Okay, but I love this because the annual calendar keeps me focused through the whole year. It keeps me on track. I am, of course, in the summer, stepping back, looking at my data, looking at my program, identifying those gaps, talking to my administrator about, okay, what are the priorities for next year? Asking my district, what are the priorities for next year? And then I'm looking at these mindsets and behaviors and saying, All right. What 2 to 3 standards can I really focus on this year to fill the gaps that I'm seeing using all of these data pieces? A lot of it is glaringly obvious. You know, we know our schools, but when we're able to pull the data and prove that the glaringly obvious is an actual reality, that's where this annual calendar can really support us in saying, this is what I do, this is why I do it. And then as the school year happens, and all of a sudden you're asked to do this, or you're asked to do that, or can you fill in here? Can you help us with that? You can say, let me check my annual agreement and my calendar and see if I can fit that in. And that gets to be your answer. Other than, you know, oh, yeah, I think I can. Let me check, but I think I can. You can assertively advocate for your program by saying, well, the agreement that we discussed earlier in the year really has me focusing on X, Y, and Z. So how does that fit into those priorities? Oh, well, I'm just wondering if maybe we could look at that another time, or if there's someone else who's better suited to fill that role, right? You're not being mean. You're just advocating for your program because you've looked at the data and you've talked to your advisory board. They are on the same page with you and you're ready to move forward to impact your community for that systemic change that you want, right? And you can do it with a database decision. So when you're advocating for your program, pull together an advisory board, use the annual administrative agreement. Those 3 pieces, the agreement, the action plan, and the annual calendar, those will get you started and those will give you legs to stand on so that as you move forward in your program, you can really impact your community and assertively advocate without feeling guilty or having any kind of shame that maybe I could have done more. So again, I will put all of these documents in one place so that you can take a look at them. All right, guys, moving on to advocating for your profession. You've developed yourself, you have developed your program, okay? You're ready to advocate for it. What about advocating for your profession? Maybe you've been listening to me this whole time going, I already do that, check, check, check. Awesome. So now it's time to advocate for your profession. Now it's time to step up and say, okay, what can I do to impact systemic change for school counseling in general? What can I do to really step into that? I want to bring up a document that you guys are going to love. It is 101 pages. It is called the Asca Position Statements. So this beast of a document is going to answer those questions you asked about. How do I stay on track legally and ethically as a school counselor? So you can see the table of contents. And again, I can upload this PDF to you. Feel free to run to Staples and have it printed out. It's fantastic. So we've got a lot of things here that we can really look at and say, as a professional, am I legally, ethically doing what I can? And it's great. I mean, if you have any questions about, okay, child abuse and neglect prevention, that starts on page 12. Cultural diversity, that starts on page 24. Oh, the school counseling or school counselor and discipline, that's on page 26. How about gender equity? How about, let's see, high stakes testing, the school counselor and high stake testing. Oh, the school counselor and multi-tiered systems of support, that's on page 47. Social emotional development, student mental health, trauma-informed practice. Guys, it's all here. So if you want to know, am I on the right track when it comes to legal and ethical issues in school counseling, this 101-page document has the answers that you need. let me just look at, let's say, discipline. That's always a fun one to talk about, right? Let's just look at that for a second. The school counselor and discipline. Well, every piece or every kind of policy that Asca has, it has when it was adopted, when it was revised. This was revised in 2019, talks about the Asca position statement regarding the school counselor and discipline. It goes into the rationale for it, and it talks about the school counselor's role. All of these different, there are 47 different topics. All of these discuss what the Asca position is, the rationale behind it, and what the school counselor's role is in answering this issue. Okay, so this is one of those documents. Oh, and of course, APA, all of the references are there. So you can go back and do even more research if you want to. Guys, this document is invaluable. I highly recommend that you download it, keep it accessible, because if you have questions come up about different issues in the school realm, you can effectively say that you have a foundation for understanding your position and your role in that ethical or legal issue. It's something you can bring to your advisory board to educate them, and then they can advocate for you at the professional level. So again, in advocating for your profession, number one, my suggestion is sign up for Asca membership. You can get access to all this stuff. And there are conferences, and there are professional development sessions, and there are websites and social media and emails and all the things. It can be kind of overwhelming. However, if you have identified what you are looking for in your legal and ethical standards, in your mindsets and behaviors, and what you're doing to impact your community for systemic change, if you've identified that, then you can filter through all the information that you get and really pull out the key pieces that you need as you go. So Asca membership, of course, the Tennessee School Counseling Association, membership in that as well. Go to the conferences. The two that I listed on the slide are just SCALI, the Music City SEL, but I could go on and on and on. Asca just had theirs, and it was virtual. I hope some of you were able to attend. If you did, props to you. Wow, you are rocking the professional development for this summer. If you did that and you're doing this, whoo. So that was great that it was online, lots of fun things. I hope you enjoyed all the fire throwing and the cheerleaders and all the things that they brought out to celebrate you as a school counselor, because you deserve it. Absolutely, 100% deserve it. Social media has a ton of stuff. I, in the beginning, read off some different things from some of the school counselors that I follow. You know, you can do that too. That's super easy. Go to Pinterest or Instagram and start following some of these. And I can send you some links through that Discord. But it really helps stir up the conversation. Collaboration is key. Thank you, MTSU, for this opportunity, because collaboration is key. The more we hear from each other, the more that we support each other, the more that we grow in our professionalism, and the more that we advocate for our profession, the more that we will see that systemic change that we want, right? The last thing I really want to talk about is legislation. This is a big thing that I really was just recently turned on to, I guess in the past 18 months or so, especially as we were looking at a lot of legislation with COVID regulations and all these things. I started digging around a little bit more. I won't go into too much detail, but I will say that two key pieces that you can look at when it comes to legislation on school counseling and mental health services and support, social emotional learning, all of that stuff, and what's coming down the pike. The two pieces are the Safe Schools Initiative and FY 2022. So just jot those down, because that's something to really look at if you're wanting to get a start and get rolling on what are some legislative pieces that will impact me as a profession and my program. Safe schools, And FY 2022, that's fiscal year 2022, and it's just about the dollars that are coming down the pike. And if I can just say this, the data is linked to the dollars. So as much as we dislike the numbers and this is a student, not a number, I understand that, and you understand that. We know that, but the dollars are tied to the data. And if we're not willing to put a qualitative kind of number to what we do and to student progress and learning and development, then it's going to be that much harder for us to advocate for the dollars that are out there to support mental health and social and emotional learning supports in our schools. So there's that. All right, so Safe Schools FY 2022. Let me just real quickly pull up a couple of points about that, okay? So there is kind of this little booklet that you can download, and it's the final report and findings of the Safe Schools Initiative. Final report and findings of the Safe Schools Initiative. And this came out of Washington, D.C. in 2004. I just want to pull up a couple points. This is following the attack at Columbine High School in 1999. The Secret Service and the Department of Education initiated this whole idea of thinking and planning and looking at pre-attack behaviors engaged in by the attackers who carried out school shootings. So the study was called the Safe School Initiative. And in the Safe School Initiative, they developed a guide to investigating and responding to threats in schools. The findings from the Safe School Initiative suggest that some future attacks may be preventable and that educators can play a part in prevention by, and here's where the school counselor steps in, and I'll tell you what the Asca position is here in a second. Educators can play a part in prevention by creating an environment where students feel comfortable telling an adult whenever they hear about someone who's considering doing harm to another person, or even when the person is considering harming themselves. That kind of describes a lot of what we do, doesn't it? As advocates, we stand in the gap for students, and our role is very much a part of creating that environment where students feel comfortable to talk to a safe adult. So the American School Counseling position in 2016 about the Safe Schools Initiative, Asca seeks to promote safe schools through their gun safety position statements, promotion of safe schools through conflict resolution, bullying and harassment prevention, safe schools and crisis response, school safety and the use of technology. And all of this is wrapped into the positive perceptions that kids have of school. So the minute meetings that I do in August and then again in January, those are a huge indicator of student connectivity and whether or not they have a positive perception of school, whether or not they feel the school climate is conducive to their learning and their development, overall school health, all of that stuff. So minute meetings is a simple way to pull data to show I am supporting the Safe Schools Initiative. And this is huge. This is huge. So the rationale being that school personnel can provide the most positive protection for youth, a connected school environment and responsive school counseling services. Wow, we do that. That's huge. So collecting those pieces of data to support that we do that and then presenting that to your advisory board, it'll only help your district. It'll only help increase the profession so that school counselors are noted as people who are aware of the general situation of social emotional learning and mental health in our society, and we are working to affect that systemic change. It's huge. So the school counselor's role is to respond and promote and redirect and make referrals. I will upload this document as well to the program. All right, last thing. fiscal year 2022, FY 2022. So Congress is working hard. And one of the biggest things is budget, right? So President Biden, he's looking at all these things, and I think it's kind of cool that his wife is an educator. That's kind of nice. So maybe there's a little bug in the ear there that education is going to get a spotlight. And what we're looking at with FY 2022 is lots and lots and lots. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars going toward the Safe Schools Activities Program, going toward school-based mental health services, going toward a grant program to fund school-based mental health. So $606 million to allow for new competitions in 2 existing grant programs. And then this funding represents a $500 million increase. Did you hear that? So it's $606 million for fiscal year 2022. That's a $500 million increase. Wow. All right, so as we look at this, the program's designed to increase the pipeline of well-prepared special ed teachers, leaders, early interventionists, school mental health professionals, specialized instructional support services. That includes school counseling, all right? So what they're looking at is increasing the amount of school-based mental health professionals. They're looking at ratios. There's a buzzword for you. Ratios. I mean, right now we're looking at like a 500-to-1 ratio, right? Well, this program, the American School Counselor Association and the School Social Work Association, they're advocating for a 1 to 250 ratio. Could you imagine having a caseload of 250? I mean, think of what you can do with that. Wow. Talk about systemic change. I love it. I love it. So all of these dollars are coming down the pipeline, and the Congress is saying without a highly qualified workforce of school-employed mental health professionals, schools lack the capacity to provide comprehensive social and emotional learning and mental, behavioral, and academic interventions and supports. So the advocacy at the federal level is there, and we can do our part as professionals to collect the data, to report the data, to advocate for school counseling programs and for school counseling professional, education at the university levels, at the state levels, all of these things, all right? Now, I am gonna leave with a bit of a challenge because I looked at who signed off on this report to Congress. And it was a huge list of national organizations and state organizations. Asca was on there. Let's see, CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, they were on there. Committee for Children, I don't know if you've noticed my poster back here, Second Step. I love Committee for Children, little plug right there. They're on there. And the American Counseling Association, ACA, they're on there for national. But when you look at state organizations, we had representation from 10, 12, 20 different state level school counseling associations. Tennessee wasn't on there. It was the Tennessee Association of School Psychologists, but there's just a little challenge. And I'll meet that challenge by saying I'll volunteer. So if anybody from the Tennessee School Counseling Association is watching, call me. I don't mind writing, getting on this and signing my name to advocate that these dollars come to Tennessee. But yeah, I mean, Alabama's on here, Georgia's on here, Virginia was on here. Tennessee's not on here. So that's my challenge, guys. Let's step up and advocate for school counseling in our own selves, right? In our schools with that annual agreement Asca's provided the framework. Let's advocate at our district level, pull an advisory board together, guys. Interdisciplinary collaboration, it's big. At the state level, I'm so excited to hear what the state has to say next. So that's really fun. I'm glad to be, able to hear all of that, and that's something to plug into. But then at the national level, guys, we can advocate. So that's my challenge for today. I hope that you have gained something from this. I will upload all these documents to the Discord. I'll be following the Discord to answer any questions and hopefully guide you, or provide resources or whatever you want from me. Thank you, Dr. Clark and Dr. Wilson, for this opportunity. I'm obviously a little passionate about this, and I'm glad to be able to share. I hope to see some of you at the SCALI conference, and I hope to hear from you. My email address is amy.baltimore, just like the city, @cityschools.net. And feel free to email me. I have no problem replying to emails and sending resources as you need. So thank you so much. Hope you have a good time with the rest of the conference, and I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Amy. That was an excellent presentation. We do have a few questions that have come in. The first one is, when do you ask the staff to complete the needs assessment?
Okay, so I really like doing a needs assessment periodically throughout the year, but the big one is usually after August has rolled through and we're really into the first 9 weeks. I like to roll the needs assessment out to the leadership in my school first and get their take, like the interventionists and the leaders for every grade level. So I like to roll it out toward the end of the first 9 weeks. And then again, at the end of the school year to just kind of assess and see where those needs met, or what gaps do they feel are still out there, still need support.
Excellent. The next question is, and I think you mentioned this, where exactly do you find the Asca documents that you talked about?
Right, so schoolcounselor.org, schoolcounselor.org. That's really your biggest website to be able to find all of those. You have to dig around, but you look under the Asca National Model, 4th edition, click on that tab, all the documents are there. But I'll upload those 3 that I was talking about. I'll upload those to the Discord so you can access those easily there and then follow from there.
Excellent. The next question is, what are some specific advocacy activities that school counselors can do to advocate for minority student populations, students with disabilities? How can school counselors, what advocacy projects can school counselors do? Okay,
so I'm thinking about 2 in particular right now that are burning in my heart. And the one is addressing the implicit bias in our own selves and in our colleagues. This would be an amazing PD that you can do for your faculty. And if you go to Harvard, it's the Implicit Bias Project through Harvard. There is a survey that you can take, and you can even bring it to your staff and faculty so that you can assess where your implicit bias is and kind of look at theirs and bring that to a roundtable discussion, because awareness is key. And for instance, peanut butter and is that an implicit bias that you have? Must we have jelly with peanut butter? What if I want avocado with my peanut butter? So it's one of those things where you can stop and say, wow, I didn't even know that I was thinking that rigidly about this topic or that. And there's so many, there are so many different categories. So I would start there, just being able to educate yourself and do a little bit of self-reflection. Implicit bias, it's a Harvard program and it's a survey you can do online. So also the second thing is looking at your discipline data. Where are you seeing, or who are you seeing is receiving the most disciplinary action at the administrative level? Really dig into the subcategories in that and say, okay, what's happening here? My personal opinion, and I've actually spent all summer researching this, so if you want me to share my research with you, I'm more than willing to do that. Having a restorative approach to discipline is going to break down, or it's going to do a lot to break down the bias that we see in discipline data. So that's my answer to that. I can go on and on forever on that one.
I love that. I think that is critical that school counselors understand we don't do discipline, but we are still in the mix of discipline and how we support students and faculty and staff. I absolutely love that. So the next question somebody asked is, can you tell more about your minute meetings that you have?
Sure. Okay. So this is fun, and this is not something original to me, so I don't want to take credit for it. I heard about it at a conference and adapted it to myself, but it's just a Google form, and I have some really simple questions on it, so I can share that with you if you want. And basically, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I spend time in August and in January. I sit in each grade level hallway, and just to give you a caveat, we're opening our doors in our school with 1,000 kids. So I'm at a big school, K through 6. I sit in the hallway and I literally meet for 1 minute with every single student in the building. We go through the form. If they don't know me, I introduce myself, and it's a simple form to assess connectivity. So do they feel welcome? You know, or it's all these different questions, like, do they have an adult at the school that they can talk to if they are feeling concerned? Do they know who the school counselor is? Which is funny because I'm sitting there asking that question, but you'd be surprised who they think I am. It's really funny sometimes, especially kindergarten. I don't do kindergarten until January, so there's that. But the minute meetings give me so much to be able to say, oh, I actually need to build small groups from the data I'm getting from here. Or, oh, wow, this one grade level is feeling very disconnected. What can I do to implement a buddy system or put together some sort of peer mentoring program in that grade level? So it's a really, really neat thing. I love doing it. And I have interns pretty regularly, which is so much fun. Thank you, MTSU. I really do enjoy it. So I had my intern last year do this, and it was such an eye-opening experience as a brand new, intern, never done school counseling before. It provided so many pieces of data that this intern needed to say, oh, well, here are my gaps, and I can fill those gaps with X, Y, and Z.
Yes, and I can speak to that intern during class. They loved it. They were overwhelmed with it, but absolutely needed the opportunity. So definitely an effective methodology to gather more data. Absolutely. So this next question, I'm looking at my other screens. It's a long one. In your advisory board meetings, do you share a specific target goal and then delegate and discuss how to meet it? Basically, what does it look like from your notes to the ground running? Right.
Okay. So the advisory board starts out with me sitting down and asking a lot of questions. What are the priorities for the district this year? What are the priorities for the school for the next year, the administrative priorities? What is the improvement plan, the school improvement plan? Asking my administrator about that. Asking, what did we see with behavior and with discipline, and pulling those pieces. So I start out with asking a lot of questions to get the information that I need to put together my annual agreement. So then the next meeting is with my administrators, and presenting my annual agreement, which uses the information they gave me plus the information I have from my data from my program, and then I submit that. So then after that, the next meeting with the advisory board is, okay, I took what you gave me. This is what I presented to my administration. Help me stay on track. Right? So what are new directives from the district? What are new things happening in special ed? What are new things happening? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it goes from there. That's that monitoring piece to keep me accountable, because that's a weakness of mine, the follow through. So I like to have accountability.
Absolutely. The advisory committee, I think, even when I was a school counselor, was one of my favorite parts of school counseling. So it's really important that we pick good people to get a diverse set of information and data. Absolutely. The next question is, where can I find information where you said about the federal support for school counselors and the student ratio for 1 to 250 so I can show my supervisor?
Yeah, okay. So I'll upload this to the Discord, but this was basically a bill presented to Congress. Hold on. Oh, goodness, sorry. All my papers are shuffled. All right. So you can, if you go, you can just Google this, okay? Addressing the shortages of school mental health. And it is a bill presented to Congress, and there's a lot of them, but these guys are the ones that are really, I guess, spearheading the initiatives. Tom Cole, Rosa DeLauro, which is DeLauro. So Tom Cole, COLE, Rosa DeLauro, Patty Murray, Murray, Patty Murray, and Roy Blunt, Blunt. They presented this letter in support of the bill, but as you kind of Google those names and the different pieces, the addressing the shortages of school mental health and other specialized instructional support, as you start looking and researching that, it'll lead you to the actual bill, which is, I mean, hundreds of pages. So, I mean, you don't necessarily want to look at all of it. It's a lot. But yeah, that's where you could start.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I would also just say to be sure that you look at Asca, because Tasca has done an amazing job also advocating for ratios for school counselors here in the state. So I think there's like a federal push, but there's also a state push. And Tasca, particularly Lauren Baker, I think she's done an amazing job. She is a tremendous advocate, and I'm really excited that she's going to be up later. She has done an amazing job advocating at the state capitol for school counselors in that ratio. So at
Thank you.
Yes, and the state level. So Tennessee, I think she has really took the mantle on and done that. So thank you for that information. Yes.
Thank you for telling me that. And Lauren, if you want me, I will link arms with you and we'll storm the Bastille. I'm there.
Yes. So I guess the last question then would be, what are some key takeaways you want to make sure that school counselors who had the privilege of listening to you today, what are some key takeaways you really want them to take with them?
Sure. I think number one is just, you are a professional. And that is definitely something that I know some school counselors, no, I'm just support. I'm here to help. Yes, you are. And the way you do that is by being a professional school counselor. So one of the biggest takeaways I would say is just grab onto that with both hands and don't be afraid of the data. Pull it up. It will identify gaps, but that's a good thing because it's your role to step into those gaps. So use the data, really advocate for your professionalism, and don't be afraid to be assertive.
Thank you, Amy. We really appreciate all the information that you shared today and all that you do for the elementary school counselors, and personally for my students who we send to you. Thank you for helping train them and develop them into great school counselors. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a journey.
All right, and we'll turn it back over to Dr. Clark.
Amy, thank you for being with us today. I hope that the professional school counselors listening today are as inspired and energized as I am just listening to what you had to say today. Thank you for being with us.